Hi guys, Charlie Black 20 back again with another video on history. Today I will be discussing the three major turning points of the American Civil War. Now I say three major turning points because there's a lot of controversy surrounding these ideas, and the fact of the matter is that there is no single great turning point of the war unless you count the very beginning and the very end. So the three major ones that I believe have significantly impacted the American Civil War, as well as just history in general. We have the different reasons why they were turning points. There is the moral slash foreign turning point, the military turning point, and the political turning point of the American Civil War. And I'm going to be doing them in order of date. So I believe that the turning point for the moral question of the war, as well as the foreign interventionism of the war, happened in September of 1862, when General Robert E. Lee, commander of the Army of Northern Virginia of the CSA, attempts to invade the North, going through Maryland to reach Pennsylvania, wreak havoc in the area, win a decisive victory on Northern soil, hoping to bring the British and French into the American Civil War on the southern side. For the reason British would intervene on this occasion is to put a check on the United States, as well as to renew the cotton trade that had been blockaded by the Union fleet. And so the one thing that the Confederacy needed was one more great victory on Northern soil this time to bring them in, because the British public at this point is very reluctant to get involved. Many of the politicians and merchants want to, but the British public is very against slavery. So the CSA put its foundations into slavery, so there's a big controversy right there. So Robert E. Lee attempts to invade the North, and some of his orders, showing the details of his army, at least like where it is, who's where, things like that, fall into the hands of the Union General George B. McClellan, who gathers up the forces he can. It's not a completely unified army at this point. It's been reformed, basically, in just about 5 days, and McClellan goes after Lee with these orders that he's captured to try and prevent Lee from going further north and drive him back into Virginia. That's what he's trying to do. And this culminates in the battles of South Mountain, which delays McClellan but also is a victory for him because he drives the Confederates back, and the Battle of Antietam, which historians in general agree is tactically a draw. It is the single bloodiest day in American history, but it resulted in a tactical draw the next day when Lee refused to retreat and McClellan refused to attack. And then on the 19th, because the battle happened on the 17th, on the 19th, Lee withdraws back across the Potomac into Virginia. McClellan lets him go. But this is the moment that President Lincoln, has been looking for to do something he's been planning to do, which is issue the Emancipation Proclamation, whereby he is declaring that all slaves in the rebelling states are now free by January 1st, 1863. He's offering the Confederacy a chance to come back in with their slaves if they do it before January 1st, 1863, while also saying that if they don't, then the slaves are free, and this is a Union war measure. And they will be able to recruit black soldiers en masse. There had been a few occasions where the Union armies of local commanders had been recruiting some black soldiers, mainly in like New Orleans, which is very different from the rest of the South, or like in South Carolina, where you've got lots of free people of color. But this will allow the Union to gather up, through the course of the war, 180,000 colored troops, and that makes up 10% of the Union Army, so they made a huge difference. The Emancipation Proclamation allows this because of the Battle of Antietam. And it also allows Lincoln to claim the moral high ground in international affairs, where he's saying to the British, we're fighting a war to end slavery now. So the British public no longer has any interest whatsoever of getting involved in this war to help the South. They're willing to sell them stuff, but they're not willing to go to war for them or to end the blockade, because, again, they are very anti-slavery, and the South is predicated on slavery. So that is the moral, diplomatic, and slightly military turning point for the American Civil War in favor of the Union. Now, the next one is the military turning points. And I believe these mostly all happened on the 4th of July, 1863, where you have three major campaigns come to an end, whereby the Confederates lose 3 times at the same date. You've obviously got the Battle of Gettysburg, where General Robert E. Lee has just lost 28,000 men killed, wounded, or captured to the Union, who have lost about 23,000. So it's the bloodiest battle in the American Civil War. 51,000 casualties after 3 days of fighting, July 1st to the 3rd. But you've also got the surrender at Vicksburg, where almost 30,000 Confederate soldiers are surrendered and paroled, meaning that they will be exchanged, although a lot of them do not go back into the Confederate Army. So General Ulysses S. Grant takes the surrender of the last bastion on the Mississippi River under Southern control, called Vicksburg. Once it falls, the Mississippi River is now cut. It is completely in Union hands. It cuts the Confederacy in half. At the exact same time on July 4th, the Confederates under General Holmes attempt to attack the garrison, the Union garrison held Helena, Arkansas, about 4,000 Union soldiers versus 7,500 Confederate soldiers. But the Confederates messed up plenty of things during the battle, and the Union soldiers were ready for them. So when they attacked, it was a bloodbath. Over 1,600 Confederate casualties versus about 200 Union casualties. So in the Trans-Mississippi Theater, meaning across the western side of the Mississippi, we have a Union victory at Helena, Arkansas. We have the Union victory and surrender of Vicksburg at July 4th, taken by General Ulysses S. Grant. And at Gettysburg, where you have General Robert E. Lee soundly beaten by the Army of the Potomac on northern soil in Pennsylvania. General Lee begins his retreat on July 4th. Yes, he does manage to escape back across the Potomac, but this shows Northerners that not only can this war be won, but that the great Robert E. Lee can be beaten. This is where Northern morale skyrockets. At this point in the war, everything is starting to look up for the Union. It is a military turning point where you've got the Confederacy cut in half, a defeat in Arkansas for the Confederates, a surrender at Vicksburg of over 30,000 troops, and Robert E. Lee soundly beaten after losing almost 28,000 men. Now, that's a military turning point if ever there was one. And again, in Vicksburg, the Union only lost about 4,000 to 5,000 men killed, wounded, or missing, whereas the Confederates have lost over 32,000, including killed and wounded and captured. So that's the military turning point, in my humble opinion, where this Confederacy has just had 3 military defeats on the exact same day. And it's also shown that Robert E. Lee can be beaten. So that's the turning point for the military standpoint. And the final one that I think is the crux of the issue is the political turning point, where in 1864, August of 1864, it looks very likely that President Abraham Lincoln, who's running for re-election, is not going to be re-elected because of the mounting Union casualties that have happened. There have been very few Union victories so far after their great success in 1863. Now they're just in a stalemate, a complete stalemate. From May to August, there's nothing but a stalemate between General Ulysses S. Grant and Robert E. Lee in the Overland Campaign and in front of Petersburg, where humongous Union casualties are mounting, and the northern newspapers are just full of casualty lists of dead, wounded, missing, captured. And the northern public is just astonished at these losses. And at Atlanta, it seems like Sherman has been stymied by both General Johnston and General Hood, that he just cannot break through those entrenchments at Atlanta. He has maneuvered his way down there, but he has not captured Atlanta. And then you've also got the debacle of the Red River Campaign, as well as debacles in the Shenandoah Valley and at Bermuda Hundred along the James River. So right now it looks like the Union war effort is stymied at the moment. And Lincoln in August, with the re-election just around the corner in November, it doesn't look like he's going to get it. But on September 2nd, 1864, Sherman manages to capture Atlanta at last. He forces Hood's army to leave their entrenchments, burn the city, burn the munitions, and just leave. They've captured Atlanta. It's a great Union victory at not a lot of cost this time. And so this shows Northerners, no, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It shows the Northern public that the Republicans are starting to win again. And not long after that, like 2 weeks later, you get the Shenandoah Valley campaign under Phil Sheridan, where he wins 3 victories in a row against Jubal Early and his Confederate Army of the Valley. Each time beats Early soundly, each time. And so these military victories allow the political climate to change and give the Northern public hope that the war is almost over. And so Lincoln, although the popular vote is very thin, he gets about 52 to 48, I believe. He does win the Electoral College in a landslide. I believe it was 212 electoral votes to 233 against George B. McClellan, who had won at Antietam, but was the Democratic nominee, who actually repudiated his own party stance. He actually said he would continue the war, but he was the conservative nominee, whereas Lincoln was the Republican nominee, although they called themselves the National Union Party at the time. But the point is that politically speaking, this was the turning point. The only hope the Confederates had left was a political re-election, or a political election that was for somebody who was more in their favor, somebody that they could convince to do a negotiation of some kind to gain their independence. That was not to be. Lincoln said, no, you're not getting your independence. No, you're not keeping slavery. Those are the 2 issues that the South, especially Jefferson Davis, wanted the most. They wanted their slaves and they wanted independence. They were not going to get either of those with Lincoln. Once he's reelected, there is no chance the South can hold out much longer. The war is going to be perpetrated as harshly as possible until its end. So, once the war is over, that's when things changed. Yeah. But as I said, that's the political turning point, is when Lincoln is reelected. It took away the last hope the Confederates had to a negotiated peace of some kind. So I hope I was able to give you guys some good information. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but I do that when it comes to history. So thank you guys for listening, and take care. Charlie Black, out.